Hey guys, I'm Ryan with Oregon Construction, and today we're working with a Pentruder HF saw. Now, when we mount our saw to a track, if we notice that our saw cut is a little bit wobbly or it's not straight, one of the reasons that you might be having some issues is the adjustment of the saw head to the track, or your rollers might be a little bit worn. So we're going to talk about what track adjustment and track roller replacement looks like today. So, a couple quick things before we get started. When your saw head is attached to your track, it should be fixed and it should be solid. We shouldn't have any roller give, and our rollers should be tight. Now, this side of the track isn't adjusted properly, so we've got some play in it. I can also take my rollers and turn them. I'm going to show you what that looks like. I'm going to show you how to replace them if we can't get the spec the way we want it once we get our adjustment made. Why don't you come on back to the back of the saw and I'll show you how to do that. Alright, so when mounting the saw to the track, it's important that we use our handle to lock the roller to the track with the proper amount of tension. We release the detent or the lock and we adjust our handle so that it creates tension with about a ½ inch of play. Right now, it doesn't take a whole lot of pressure, but I actually locked that roller to the track with just a touch of tension. You don't want the handle to engage the track and the roller way out here and a lot of pressure is needed, or with zero force at all to lock to the track. A properly tensioned roller to the track won't allow any give, any play, and our roller shouldn't turn. Alright, so now this side of the track isn't adjusted properly. Notice I've got some play in the track. That's creating a wobbly saw head, not an optimal result. I can also take my roller and I can actually turn it on the track, even though the handle's fully tensioned. So we need to adjust this side of the track. The top roller is fixed. All of our adjustment happens in this bottom roller down here. Now to do that, I'm going to use two 6mm hex wrenches. It's important to note that that bottom roller and where all that adjustment comes from our eccentric shaft. So this is what the inside looks like of that shaft as we rotate it. Notice one side has a higher load than the bottom. So as we rotate the shaft, we're actually going to rotate our track. I'm going to show you what that looks like on the handle as I do it. To start, I'm going to loosen the 6mm Allen on the front of the saw head. It only takes about a ½ to 3/4 of a turn. Now, if you watch real closely, this track and the engagement to the roller, as I turn the rear 6mm eccentric shaft, I actually move the track up and down. Now, I'm going to adjust that track with just the proper amount of tension, and it might take a couple tries. So when I adjust my handle, I have engagement, nice tight firm engagement at the top of travel of the handle. Now, my track's nice and tight, my roller's seated firm. Now, if you've tried to have that adjustment and it's not working for you, and you can't get proper alignment and a proper fit between the roller and the track guide, it might be time to replace your rollers. They get slurry on them and they are a wear part of your saw. So I'm going to show you how to replace these rollers. Whenever you replace rollers, I recommend replacing all 4 rollers on the top and bottom, 2 rollers on the top and 2 rollers on the bottom of the saw. Let me show you how to do that now. Alright, so we tried to make our adjustment and we're still not within specs. We're going to go ahead and replace those rollers top and bottom. First thing we got to do is take the saw off the track. Now, we have access to our rollers top and bottom. I'm going to remove the top roller by using a 6mm hex and removing the screw and the nut off the top. Screw and nut have been removed. I'm going to take the roller assembly off the saw. Now, when you call customer service and you order your parts, you're going to get your roller, the bearings that come with it, and a dust seal for the front and the back as one full assembly. So it makes the ordering really easy for you. So when we get our new parts, let's put a little bit of marine grease on the front and the back of our bearings as well as on the inside. Now I'm going to install in reverse order of how I disassemble. I'm going to start with my dust seal, make sure it goes on in the proper orientation with the cup facing into the bearing. I'm going to install my bearing. Now there's 2 bearings inside of this pulley, so it might take a little bit of work to get everything aligned. Don't be afraid to work it just a touch to get everything lined up. That one went on really smooth and easy, but sometimes they might take just a light and gentle tap. It's not going to take a lot though. Notice my marine grease is on, everything's applied. My dust washer on the face of the bearing, and now I'm going to reinstall my washer and my 6mm Allen. Now we have a torque spec for this Allen. It's about 26 foot-pounds or 38 Newton meters of force. That's not a lot, but we do have a torque spec for it for you. I've preset my torque wrench to make this easy. My upper bearing, my upper roller has been replaced. Now I'm going to go to my lower and show you how to change the roller on the eccentric shaft. Alright, let's get to this lower roller for all the holy rollers out there. Now, two 6mm Allens, one for the front of the saw head and one for the back. I'm going to break it loose. I'm going to remove this entire assembly, the eccentric shaft and all. Now there's a couple things on this lower roller that I want to note. First, let's get it apart here for you. First, there's a spacer. There isn't a spacer for the top of the rollers, but there is for the bottom. That spacer needs to be in direct contact with your frame to create proper alignment. So, don't lose that washer. It's really important. I'm going to take this roller assembly, and I've actually got one already greased up here ready. I've ordered the whole thing from customer service. I'm going to put it back together in reverse order. So I've got my eccentric shaft, my dust cover, my roller. Now something else to note about the roller. All four rollers are the same, but there's a wider shoulder on one side of the roller. That wider shoulder needs to be away from the blade, away from the head. If they're not all the same, you won't have proper track alignment. So I'm going to make sure that the wider shoulder faces away every time I install this roller. I'm going to put my dust seal on the rear. Again, everything's been greased as it goes back together, and that washer. I'm going to reinstall it to the frame now. Now, for the purpose of this video, I'm not going to torque the lower roller, but they all need to be torqued to 26.5 foot-pounds or 38 Newton meters. Now, there's a couple of things before we put this saw back into service. First, we've adjusted the alignment of those rollers. We're going to have to adjust them to our track before we send it back to the field. Just because you replace the rollers doesn't mean it's going to fit properly on your track. Adjust those rollers like we did at the start of the video, both sides. Another thing, notice there's a locking mechanism on these handles. Let's keep that greased. I like WD-40 or really any penetrating oil. Soak it, apply it liberally, make sure it works down through the shaft and keeps you well lubricated. That prevents corrosion and keeps it working efficiently. Third, we've got a Zerk fitting on both sides of the frame. Use your marine grease, a pump. It's a pretty tight fit in there, so it's only going to take a pump or two, but go ahead and grease both sides before you send the saw back out. Again, preventative maintenance goes a long way to keeping your Pentruder HF saw alive and well in the field. Thanks for using Pentruder. If you have any questions, look below. We've got customer service phone numbers as well as numbers to our technical team. Give us a call. We'd love to help you. Thanks for using Pentruder.